Hey everybody, just wanted to take a few seconds of your time before the podcast starts. Just wanted to let you know about a passion project of mine for the last 3 years called Hustle Focused Energy. It's a powdered drink mix intended to help you focus and accomplish your goals. Super excited to bring this to market. Go check it out, hustletheday.com. And thank you so much for listening. On this episode of the Hustle the Day podcast, I'm super honored to have Brian Hess here. He is the CEO of the Pavement Group, founder of Top Contractor School, and he runs an agency that helps contractors out. We talk all things business, family, and omnipresence on the web. You're going to want to listen to this one. Let's jump into it. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Hustle the Day podcast. My name is Trent. Super excited to have Brian Hess here with me today. I was fortunate to connect with him somewhat recently, and you know what? I'm excited to dive into his story a little bit more. So why don't you jump in here, Brian, and tell me a little bit more about yourself?
Thanks for having me, man, first and foremost, and happy to be here as well. So I am, first and foremost, a husband and a father of four amazing humans, and a couple of businesses that I'm involved in, and people, and happy to be doing what I'm doing, man. I'm just at a great place in my life, and happy to be here with you, and happy to be here talking about everything that we can to hopefully inspire and help some other people.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's what we're here to do, trying to help others going through some of these situations. So tell me a little bit. You said you're involved in a couple different companies. What are some of those companies that you're working on right now?
So I've got the Pavement Group is a nationwide asphalt and concrete company that services mostly customers with a lot of properties. So multi-property owners. So if they've got hundreds of properties, they're a great customer. If they got thousands of properties, they can benefit from what we do even more. So we pave parking lots, we pour concrete, we do all that stuff, but we also have kind of a niche in that we teach people how to manage millions of square feet of pavement assets in the most financially responsible way possible. So in that way, we try to impact not only their financial budgets, but also the environment and all kinds of other things that go along with kind of teaching people how to do that. So the Pavement Group is one. Top Contractor School is another company that we kind of founded. We work with contractors across the country at the Pavement Group. And so one of our missions in working with those contractors is to give back to them for the work that they do for our customers across the country, to be able to hopefully improve their businesses in some way, shape, or form by teaching them how to sell and market and lead their companies better, and bring some of the knowledge that we have to those companies across the country that are so loyal to us and help us be able to deliver great results for our customers. And also involved in a digital marketing company called Lead Revenue. So we're focused on helping contractors as well. So, reaching out to contractors and trying to get them more presence online, social media presence on Google, everywhere like that. So trying to improve that presence and their visibility to people in their own markets. So I think that pretty much sums it up for now.
That's awesome. It looks like you've got some nice vertical integration there between the companies, and they help each other out and serve each other in their own way, which is really smart on your part. But one thing that I was really impressed by as I was, digging into you before this is you just got this omnipresence around the construction and pavement side of the world. And you were only 2.5 years into this journey. How is it that you managed to scale that so quickly to have that omnipresence in just 2.5 years?
Yeah, great question, man. And I was telling you, I've never really been asked that question, but it's one that I think a lot of people a lot of people wonder about, but they probably don't ask it in that way. So the answer to the question is, when we started the Pavement Group, we really put a heavy focus on social media, and we knew that, our ability to reach customers on that type of platform, where, as far reaching as we can get, being a national company, we were putting all our eggs in one basket, that was going to be the main driver of what would create visibility and branding and trust with customers. And so from the very beginning of, kind of our journey at the Pavement Group, we decided that was something we were going to do. And I had a couple of people who I'd met on social media that I had, conversations with, because truth be told, man, before I started this company, 6 months prior to that, I really had no social media presence whatsoever. And so I had talked to a couple of people that convinced me to come on like Facebook shows and, talk about my journey and experiences and things like that. And so as I started to build, a little bit of an online presence, and we started to go heavy into it at the Pavement Group, it just felt right, man. It always felt like it was going to do what it was supposed to do. And to be honest, at first, the results don't really come right out of the gate, right? Like, you
Right.
put in a lot of effort, and you wonder sometimes if the time investment is ultimately going to give you the return that you expected. And, probably, I would guess like 3 or 4 months into, us really, being heavy into social media as a company, I got a message on Instagram from a large property owner, from a facilities manager of a large property owner, who had told me that he had been following me on Instagram and that they were interested in us bidding some work for them. And that turned into a multi-million-dollar client for us. And so it was like, once you see that return, you kind of double down on the consistency of it, right? Of understanding what it really takes. And I talk about this all the time on my podcast in the morning, but it's that discipline and consistency, and finding a way to distribute the content and the things that you put out there on as many different platforms as possible, so that you're meeting people where they want to be. If that is YouTube, if that is Instagram, if it is Facebook, whatever it may be, TikTok. If your business, can grow on those platforms, then most definitely you want to be in as many places as you can. LinkedIn has been huge for us. But you want to be where your customer is going to be, where your prospect is going to be. So the commitment to doing that has been interesting, man. It's been a journey, because figuring out the tools to do that in the most efficient way possible is the greatest education that you can get if you're trying to grow a business, with a digital presence like that, because you can't possibly do it all manually yourself without some help. That's for sure.
Yeah, and your podcast you mentioned is, you stream that every day on Facebook, correct?
Yeah. So it streams at 7:30 a.m. Eastern on Facebook, and then I've got software that again distributes that out to YouTube, to Periscope, and then I repurpose the podcast, the video podcast, into an audio podcast, and that distributes to all the podcast platforms. So once you get that setup done, it at least takes less time to do that, right? Because when I first started doing it, I was doing it all manual before I figured it out, and it is a time investment, big time.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I was able to, link back those things because, I was listening to an audio podcast, and it says this is streamed each day on Facebook, and able to connect with you on Facebook, and then, find you on Instagram. You had a great quote in there that I had to post that I was like, oh man, this is great. And, found you on Instagram, and it's like, man, this guy is everywhere and really has a presence everywhere. And so that's really great that you were able to do that with, like you said, 6 months before, having no social media presence at all. So you're definitely a quick learner, and you know what, like you said, you're finding efficient means to be able to do all those things.
Yeah, no question. I appreciate that, man. Yeah. And anybody can do it, right? It's, you just got to dive in and be, have the tenacity to keep fighting through it and try to figure out the ways to do it. And you'll figure it out. If you're committed enough to doing it, you'll figure it out. And then you'll be amazed, man, at the one, people always get obsessed over numbers on social media, and you cannot get obsessed over likes or downloads or comments or whatever. You just have to do it and put the message out there. And as they say in the movies, if you build it, they will come, right? If you just keep putting it out there, you're going to attract, a tribe of people that believe what you believe. And, as you do that, it's really special, man. You start to create, like, literally, a community of like-minded people. And that's, what you have going on with this podcast, right? It's like, people that want to learn these type of entrepreneurial things and tips. They're gonna consume that content. It's going to improve their life. And you bring guests on here that'll share their experiences, and you just never know who you're going to impact, man, when you do things like this and you share your experiences and challenges and failures and all that stuff. Somebody out there needs to hear that today. And so I would encourage anybody listening that has ever thought about, well, I can't do that. I didn't want to do it either. When I started, I was like, man, this is not my thing. I want my family life to be private. I don't want to be out in front of people. So I had all the same doubts that everybody that's listening might have. And, you just got to jump in and do it, and realize that, the first video you make, if I go back and look at the first one I ever made, it's crazy how funny it is. And, and then you get better and better, and you feel a little bit more comfortable. And when you screw up, you don't worry about it anymore. And it's an evolution, right?
I want to talk a little bit prior to you starting this company. You had the corporate job, and you had an interesting story about how you changed industries, and you adapted to a business that you knew nothing about, that now you happen to be an expert about. How do you adapt to a business that you really don't know anything about?
I think the biggest thing, man, is don't second guess yourself, and realize that, there's nothing in this world that you can't learn if you give yourself enough time and you just don't quit. You take the transferable skills that you have from one thing to the other. There's always transferable skills, right? Whether that be leadership or sales related or marketing or relationships, whatever it is, there's always something from one business to another business or one industry to another industry that's going to be transferable. And so, that's the thing that stops most people is themselves more than it is, really just being able to learn and adapt to things. And so, that's the first thing, is don't second guess yourself. If there's something that you could be passionate about, somewhere you look and you, man, I think that could be a great career for me. Don't hesitate to jump in, because, if you jump into a career, you put yourself around the right people, those people are going to help you along, right? And then the rest of it is up to you. And so what I always say is, your training in any industry, in any new position, should be led by you. And, all you need the other people to do is be there as a resource, as a support system, and kind of as a guide to get you, pointed in the right direction and kind of recorrect your course. But the best trainer you're ever going to have is always going to be yourself, because, no one else is ever going to have the level of passion or commitment or motivation to learn, for you to learn, that you should, right? And so for me, when I jumped in, I spent a lot of time thinking about how difficult it was going to be to go from, an industry that I spent, pretty much my whole life in, technology, and jumping into, an industry of construction that I really didn't know a whole lot about. I grew up around construction, so I knew, 30,000 foot view. Back in 2011, when I jumped in, man, I couldn't have told you many details about, anything that I work with on a daily basis now. And, that is just proof to anybody that, you can jump into something and you can learn. And the most important thing that you can do is surround yourself with the right people, and build a big network of experts in different areas of that place that you're trying to go to, so that you can pull all those resources together and use the knowledge that you need. And at the same time, return some of the knowledge that you have that's transferable from somewhere else to these people that they may not know. Because, the reality is you figure out as you live on this earth long enough that everybody's an expert at something. And as much as you might be able to learn from someone else who, is an expert in the industry that you're in, there's something you're an expert at that person can benefit from you. And as long as you continue to return the favor to people, man, it's amazing how many people go out of their way to try and help you to become more successful, to be an expert, to teach you everything that they know. And I've been fortunate in my life, before this industry and in this industry, there's just so many great people out there that are willing to share everything that they've learned. I have friends that have been in this industry for 40 plus years. And then there's people that are brand new to the industry that we spend time with as well. And it's really cool, man. When you get around the right people, nothing's going to stop you from becoming an expert at anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And you are a big proponent of auditing your network. You mentioned the network aspect of, you can always reach out to someone or rely on somebody that is willing to share that information. And I believe that to absolutely be true. And it's something you preach as well of, you've got to have those people who are willing to lift you up in your network and remove the ones that are going to drag you down because they serve no real purpose in helping you grow your business or grow yourself personally either.
Certainly. I'm a huge proponent of the circle, man. And you constantly have to be auditing it. And, one of my buddies always uses this analogy, but it's like, if you imagine your body with a bunch of extension cords hanging out of it, and if you're plugged into, a positive source of energy, then it's going to charge you. If you're plugged in, it's just drawing a good conclusion for that relationship. And so, you just have, and again, it's not like, just get rid of everybody in your life. It's, over a period of time, and you start to figure out where you want to go. And when you look around you, you should see some of those things, at the next level up from where you are right now. There should be a couple people in your circle that can inspire that, that can help you get there, that are, again, they've already walked the road that you're trying to go down. And it's a huge help, man. It is the easiest way for you to accelerate your life is to find those people who have already done it.
Right. Absolutely. And you know what, that's something you hear many times over of, if you want to get to the next level, the only cheat code there is to find somebody that's been through it before. Otherwise, it's just hard work and perseverance. And you know what, we talked a little bit beforehand. You didn't have any big entrepreneurial ventures prior to what you're doing now, a few here and there. But what is it that made you decide to, pull the ripcord on the 9-to-5 corporate job and, start your own thing?
I think it's a couple of things, man. I think, ever since I was a kid, I always had, this idea that, somehow I would, have a business or lead people and when I was in corporate America, I always acted that way. I was just telling somebody this yesterday, I always acted as if it was my own business regardless, when it comes to, the work ethic, watching expenses, all those kinds of things. I think you just, kind of build that into your personality, right? It's probably in most people's DNA that either end up becoming entrepreneurs or they kind of know that they have that in them. And for me, it was, working at a bunch of different places, and I've worked at some great places and I've worked for some great people. But there was always something missing that didn't quite line up with how I saw it. With how I would want to do it. And that doesn't make me right and somebody else wrong, but there was always that fire of like, man, I could see so clearly what I wanted to build and what I wanted to make available to other people, what kind of culture that I wanted in a business. Until it's, your own thing, until you can create it, it will never be exactly the way that you want it. Right. And so for me, I was in those situations where it was really close, but not quite. And there was always something missing. And I always, there were times when I wanted to go faster than the place that I was at was willing to go. There were times that I wanted to implement technology that somebody wasn't ready to implement. So there were a lot of things. And I think that, you get to a point in your life where you say, and this is exactly where I was before I decided to do this at the Pavement Group was, it was like, I just knew it was time to jump, right? Like that if I was going to do it, it was that time. It was either now or never, really. And, I had 3 kids at the time and, wife that stays at home with those kids. And so it was really scary. You sit there and think to yourself like, man, I've got this parachute of a guarantee, every week that I can just go work for somebody. But I think that there's something inside of every entrepreneur that takes that jump that just says like, man, the last thing that I want to do is leave this earth with some regret of what I didn't do, right? If I take that leap and it doesn't work out, then at least I can say I tried, right? You can certainly be okay with trying and failing, but not trying was something that I felt like it would haunt me forever, And so that was it, man. It was really just looking at other situations and wanting them to be, just the slightest bit different or completely different. There've been situations that I've been in that I didn't align well with at all, And so when it's your own company and your own vision, it's easy to have fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've talked to a lot of people that, are wanting to get out of that 9 to 5 and they have that desire, but they just get too nervous about that, leaving that guarantee, that security. Is there any piece of advice you could give to somebody that might be in that situation?
Yeah, you will never find out who you really are until you don't have a parachute.
I love that. That's
awesome. The truth, because what you're capable of is far greater than what you will ever experience when you're working for someone else, because there's always a limit and there's always a level of comfort. And when you take that comfort away, you will find out exactly what you're made of. And when your back's against the wall, man, you will find such an incredible version of yourself that exists that you didn't even know was in there. And I would encourage everybody that has that feeling, that has that itch, to go scratch it, because you'll never regret trying it, man. The worst case scenario you have is that it doesn't work out. You learn something, you get a great experience, and you go right back to the 9 to 5 job. That's the worst case scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, speaking of those learning experiences, when you went out on your own, what would you say was your biggest failure, and what did you learn from that?
Oh man, that list is long but distinguished. It's hard to say, man. I think I think there's so much that you just don't know, right? And you get out on your own, and the truth is, when you're working somewhere and you're used to being able to pull levers, you don't take into account how long that business has been around, how many processes the business has in place already, because you didn't build it, right? So you take those things for granted. And when you try things in business, example, we tried to implement some technology year one that we ended up kind of going away from. And this, I wouldn't consider this the biggest failure, but it's a good example. We invested some money, we bought the software, we never really used it, right? We kind of dipped our toe in the water, said, we're too busy for this. We're just going to do it the old fashioned way, the way that we've known how to do it. And then, fast forward 2 years later, and now we've invested into it again, and it's successfully implemented because it's a different time in our business. There's more process in place. There's more people. There's more resources to put behind getting that right. And so I think the biggest lesson that I've learned, if I could point to one thing and say that there is a failure, every time that I have experienced something really difficult in business, it's been because I or someone on our team or we as a company rushed to do something. So we went faster than we should have. And that caused us a lot of heartburn, right? And in some cases that leads you to lengthy situations that you have to deal with on the backside to kind of redirect as a result of you make a knee-jerk decision to go do something, and then you pay the price for an extended period of time to try and fix it. So I would say that is definitely the biggest lesson that I've learned is have the emotional discipline to not react to things when you're in that moment. You just kind of react and handle things, and you might end up in a bad situation versus just being able to take a step back and learning. And I think this takes time as you get into business for yourself to realize that tomorrow is still going to come, man. Even if you screw something up really bad today, you're going to find a way to work through that. And so don't pressure yourself to make a decision too quickly that you're not comfortable with, because that quick decision could turn out to be a lengthy period of you trying to correct the course on that quick decision.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a good friend who's going through something like that right now, where the company he works for is a smaller company, and they were going to integrate this new piece of software into their process. And they set a hard deadline. This is when it's going to happen. And they set that deadline pre-pandemic. And, they did a shorter staff and all this. And, basically it wasn't ready. The people weren't trained on it, but they had that hard date, and they just said, we're putting it out anyway.
We're just going to push through it.
Yep. And everything takes 2-3 times longer now to accomplish because of this. So I think he would definitely agree with you right now that that has not been a smooth transition and something that was rushed and forced in there.
Yeah, for sure, man. It happens all the time, and you see it in many different businesses. Your buddy and I could probably share a lot of stories, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. So what would you say, it could have been the processes, we talked about it a little bit, but what would you say was a challenge that you never expected to come across when you went out on your own?
I think the biggest challenge, I think, is when you start out, you're always good at something, right? There's always something that, in our business, sometimes it's guys in the field, they know on the equipment, and they know how to get the job invoicing or something like that. I think it's that whole picture, right? And being able to look through that whole entire process from acquiring a customer to invoicing, collecting the payment. You don't really think about that whole customer journey and the whole journey that takes inside your company and all the steps that it takes to be able to do that effectively and efficiently. And that is something that I not only experience myself, but I see a lot of other, small business owners that get started in our industry. I work with a lot of those guys through Top Contractor School. And those are the challenges that you see, is that, they're missing a piece of the puzzle, right? They're missing somebody to do their invoicing in a timely fashion, or they're missing, something like that. And so, you don't expect to have to juggle as many things. So like if you're in sales, for example, and you're really successful at sales, well, that's cool. You're really successful at sales when that's the only thing that you have to do. But anticipating all of the other things that come up from, you having to go invoice a job yourself because somebody else isn't in the office, and that if you got to do 3 of those, it takes an hour, right? Or, however long it takes you. But it's there's a lot of things that, as you're an expert in one area of business, typically when you become an entrepreneur, there's a lot of other areas that you will likely overlook. Regardless of how much you prepare, you will probably still feel unprepared when you really get into it,
Yeah, absolutely. And I can definitely agree with that. Being a solopreneur myself right now, that there's a lot of
you
things
can relate.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely. So I typically ask this, because it is the Hustle of the Day podcast, but what is your personal definition of the word hustle?
whatever it takes, man. Whatever it takes. And that is, you can say that. Many people don't understand the definition. There's a lot of people that say whatever it takes. There's a lot fewer that actually do it. It is literally being willing to do whatever it takes. There's so many talented people in the world that I believe would be so much more successful if they truly adapted the definition of those three words, which is, whatever it takes. Like, don't think that because you're an expert in sales that this other thing is not your job, or that you can't do it or you can't learn it. It is truly waking up every day and being committed to the next day being a better version of what you were yesterday. And those little chunks of just getting better, if it's 1% better or 2% better or whatever it is for that day. Sometimes you make giant leaps. Sometimes you make, just the smallest bit of progress. But that day-to-day hustle, that day-to-day whatever it takes attitude, man, it is compound interest over a period of years that you can look back and say, wow, man, like look at what happened from just staying disciplined and doing those things that are going to help you win every single day, and doing whatever it takes.
Yeah, that is awesome. I love that definition, and it reminds me of somebody who was kind of become a mentor of mine that was a local businessman here. He had somebody approach him, and this friend of his was trying to get a job in Hollywood, doing something on something with Paramount. I don't know if it was actually Paramount, but for the sake of the story. And he's like, hey, I can't get through to anyone on this. I submitted my application for a job, and you know what? I called them, and I just got a voicemail, and I don't know how I'm going to get this job. And he's like, well, what else did you do? And he's like, well, that's it. And he's like, just to prove a point, I'm going to do this for you. Okay. And within about 3 hours, even though he has no connections, doesn't know anybody in the industry, he had the CEO of Paramount on the phone. Like, he just did whatever it took, used what little connection he had to go to this person, to this person, to this person, pretended like they were old buddies, left this nonchalant voicemail like, hey, we worked on this thing together, and I just wanted to talk to you about this one thing, and ends up getting the CEO on the phone and, gets a personal look at this person's application. It is interesting to see how many people say whatever it takes and then don't live up to it. There's obviously people who are doing it, and those people are definitely going to be successful. And honestly, as you described it, it's like, man, am I really doing whatever it takes? No, I don't think I am. So this is a good self-introspection.
To give you some perspective on that, man, I think that every person lives in that whatever it takes space for a percentage of time. Nobody's 100% in the whatever it takes space, or you would literally run yourself right down to a point of like you wouldn't be able to function. But I think as you discipline yourself to doing these things that make you successful, having a morning routine, doing the things, organizing yourself, setting goals, writing those goals down every single day. You do those things. The more you train yourself to spend a higher percentage of your time in that whatever it takes kind of attitude and space. And those people that spend the highest percentage of time there are the people that you're talking about. Because it's easy to respond that way, to have somebody say, well, I tried and it didn't work. And you say, give it to me and do it. And again, this is for my own good. Like, I don't spend enough time. I'm striving to spend more time in that space of like, whatever it takes. Like, how many days can I chain together that I'm doing all the right things, that I'm truly hustling like every day, and I leave it all on the field. And anybody that tells you that they're satisfied with the number of days that they can do that in a row is probably not going anywhere. It's, you're always trying to find a higher gear. You're always trying, to sharpen the saw and get better, and that's what it's about. It's about trying to spend so that response from you is a good indicator. It's, you should be evaluating yourself and you shouldn't be satisfied. Then it's, again, go back to who am I surrounding myself with that's going to push me to do that? Is there someone that's going to always be moving that goal line for me to inspire me to be more, that really sees my true potential? Not that I'm better than everybody else, that's pushing me to be the best version of me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. It goes back to that networking audit that you talked about earlier. I mean, you got to have those right people that, help you become the best version of you, like you said. It's awesome. So, that's something that, brings me to another question of, we're thinking about these things, we're being introspective, we're talking about, whatever it takes. Where is it that you do your best thinking?
Definitely in the morning, man. I'm a big morning routine guy. I wake up pretty early and, I try to get some quiet time and, really, I'm a big proponent of spending about just 30 minutes a day of quiet time. And that is just like, no TV, no cell phone, no computer, no nothing, just you and your thoughts. And again, it's something that, we all need to do a better job of. If you get no quiet time, you need to get some. If you're getting some, you need to get more, because that's where you'll find your real thoughts. This is a chaotic world that we live in. And, social media is one of the biggest obstacles of quieting the noise in your life, if you will. But so for me, man, it's in the morning. I try to, read some scripture in the morning. So kind of get my mind and my spirit in the right place. I try to work out in the mornings if I can. Most days I do. I think that it's that time when you're in that right place. For me, I think I do the best thinking right around that kind of spiritual point in my day, because your heart, your spirit, your mind is calm. And that is, where you're going to do your best thinking is not, it's not in the heat of the moment. It is. And again, that 30 minutes helps you train your mind, right? It helps you train how to think so that when you're under fire, you know how to think. One of the things that I said this year when all this stuff with Corona came around, we had a meeting as a team and I sent a message to our team. I'd heard this quote and I used it, and I think it's completely appropriate for that and for what I just described. Is they say there's two types of soldiers in the world. There's soldiers who are good shooting at the range, and there's soldiers who shoot well while they're being shot at. And those soldiers who shoot well while they're being shot at, there's a reason why they shoot well while they're being shot at. It's because they've performed the exercise so many times that it is just second nature to know how to handle it, right? And so that is what you have to do with your thoughts. It's what you have to do with your routine. It's what you have to do to create rhythm in your life, is to get your thinking straight. And you do that by doing it when it's most quiet.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm a big proponent of a morning routine as well. And, one of those things that I just read this morning was I'm currently reading the Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And a lot of those things you just said were right in there along those same lines of, there's a reason they train soldiers the way that they do, to have them be so into their routine that when they are fired upon, that it's just a natural reaction. And, he talks about starting his day and ending his day the same way so that he can control those aspects of it. And, manages the chaos throughout the day. And so, that's awesome. I love that you brought that up. Obviously it's something I need to hear. And because, like I said, I just read this today, and then you bring it up. It's like, man, I'm seeing it. I need to be better about it. And so that tells me there's other people out there who need to hear it too. So that's awesome. Personal or business, what is it that excites you about the future?
There's plenty on both sides, man. I think the biggest one being a father of four is just watching your kids grow up, and I think it mixes all of this together into just be a good role model, and raise good children that become good people in the world, and that care about other people, and make a difference. And that is all the other stuff, all the other details, all lead to that, right? It's like, if you set a good example, you do the right things, you live by your values, you stand for what you believe in, and you fight for those things. And, you try to set the best example that you can, so that when those little people grow up to be big people, they're productive members of society, and they're winners. Because if there's one thing that I know, I get chills like when I just talk about this. But for me, it's one thing to win in business, and it's fun, right? To win in your own business. For me, getting the opportunity to coach other companies and other business owners, watching them win is a higher level than what you experience when you win yourself. It's just how it works. So I think about that often, about what it will feel like when I get to see my children win. And so that is, that is something that drives me. I think about it a lot. When I'm in these moments of difficult decisions, and your back's against the wall, and you think, how am I going to handle this? It gets pretty clear as to how to handle it when you keep yourself in that space. What would I want them to do? What advice would I give them when they're adults in this same situation? So that's, for me, that's the future, right? It's, and that goes beyond my children too, but it's easy to go to that and say, that's the most exciting thing, right? Success is cool. And, all the time that I'll get to spend with my wife, years down the road, when this is all over, that's all cool too. But getting to spend that time with my wife and watching my children win as a result of the examples that we set for them is by far the most exciting thing.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Where is it that people can best find you and connect with you online?
So on all platforms, I'm Real Brian Hess. So you can find me Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, anywhere, LinkedIn, they're all the same. And then the pavementgroup.com, topcontractorschool.com, leadrevenue.com. You can find any information that you would be interested in on any of those companies there. YouTube, you name it. We're everywhere. We should be easy to find. So
perfect. Well, I'll make sure to include some links in the show description just to make it that much easier for anybody that wants to reach out to you. But I want to say thank you. I really appreciate the time, really appreciate connecting with you. And I've gotten a ton of value out of this. So I know my audience has gotten a ton of value out of this. So I encourage you all to get out there and hustle the day. Hey, thanks for listening all the way through. Sincerely appreciate it. But hey, since you're here on YouTube, I have a favor to ask. If you got any value out of this podcast, and I know you did, go ahead, hit the subscribe, the like, and the bell notification buttons. That sincerely helps us out, and I truly appreciate anybody who does that.